Have you ever just looked up at the night sky and assumed the vast void between the stars is just nothingness? Well, the source material we're exploring today asks a question that challenges the very foundation of modern physics. What if I told you the vacuum of space isn't empty at all? What if it's actually a highly structured physical fluid just waiting to be manipulated?
Welcome to today's explainer. We are diving headfirst into a totally mind-bending framework known as the S-DMT paradigm. And together, we're going to see how it leads to something ripped straight out of science fiction, yet grounded in rigorous geometric mathematics, the AMENRA warp drive. Prepare to have your understanding of the universe completely rewired.
Okay, let's map out exactly where we're going today. We'll start with the empty space illusion, then explore the superfluid universe, unpack the two faces of L39, check out Euler's cosmic blueprint, and finally, look at the AMENRA warp drive itself. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The empty space illusion. It's time to shatter the idea of the void.
So, the standard model of physics basically treats the vacuum as empty space, right? Just filled with random probabilistic quantum fluctuations. And because of that assumption, if you want superluminal or faster-than-light travel, you'd need infinite amounts of exotic negative mass, which doesn't actually exist. But the S-DMT framework flips the whole script. It reveals a reality where space is a literal, physical, thixotropic fluid. Instead of gravity being the bending of nothingness, it's just topological viscosity. And the absolute best part? It requires absolutely zero exotic mass to achieve a warp effect.
Think of this next concept as a Rosetta Stone. It translates a chaotic, probabilistic vacuum into a deterministic, physical fluid. Things we usually think of as profound mysteries, like gravity and mass, are actually just emergent properties of this fluid. Gravity is basically just a fluid pressure differential, and mass, it's just resistance to flow. It's literally a topological drag, or a jamming, inside the fluid itself.
Moving right along to Part 2, the superfluid universe. Let's look at the actual material substrate we're dealing with.
The source text grounds all of this in a very specific material known as thixotropic superfluid hydrogen. Now, what exactly does thixotropic mean? Picture wet sand, or even ketchup. It's a type of fluid that jams up and essentially solidifies when it's put under high shear stress. And in this theory, that localized freezing is exactly what creates physical matter. On the flip side, if the stress hits an absolute threshold, the whole thing fluidizes, and the viscosity just drops to zero.
So space isn't an infinite, featureless void at all. It's got a highly specific, mathematically bounded, discrete geometry. The S-DMT Plenum operates on a 39-cubed node lattice, structured as what's called a golden cross, and it exists on a closed, non-orientable Klein-bottle membrane. Basically, that means our universe has a highly specific shape and a bounded capacity. It is a strictly closed system.
And there's absolutely no guesswork here. The standard model is notorious for being full of free parameters. Numbers scientists basically just patch in by hand to make their equations work. But the S-DMT universe? Zero free parameters. None. It's entirely governed by precise geometric constants. For example, you've got the scale propeller, which is the square root of 137, dictating exactly how the fractal network scales. You've got temporal friction, creating the arrow of time, and a precise striction angle of 55.17 degrees, figuring out the lateral coupling. The geometry is literally sealed.
All right, Section 3, the two faces of L39. Let's talk about the cosmic engine.
It turns out the absolute core engine of the cosmos boils down to a single mathematical object, the L39 fractal Laplacian matrix. It is wild to think about, but every dynamic in our universe, from the emergence of gravity to the forward march of time to the creation of mass, it all reduces down to the diagonalization of this single matrix engine. It operates on a phase rotation known as the Jitterbug, which shifts the entire universe back and forth between two distinct states.
Let's compare those two states, because they're adjoint operators of one another. Think of it like a cosmic breath. The Julia phase, that's the cosmic exhale, it's the plenum. It represents expansion, light, and the filling of space, strongly favoring forward propagation. Then you have the Mandelbrot phase, which is the cosmic inhale. That's the vacuum, representing contraction, darkness, and literally carving out the spatial mold. So the universe is basically functioning as a binary state machine, rapidly oscillating between this expansion and contraction.
So where does mass actually fit into this breathing cycle? Well, mass isn't just some arbitrary object dropped into the universe. It's a physical topological drag.
When that expanding superfluid we talked about is forced to freeze under geometric stress, specifically when it hits that exact 55.17 degree striction angle, it jams. This geometric frustration creates a structural acoustic resonance, which generates what's called the fundamental 1 Hz mass gap. That localized drag, that is exactly what you and I experience as solid matter. Which brings us to Section 4, Euler's cosmic blueprint. We're looking at the literal code for movement.
Now, you've probably seen Euler's identity before. It's widely celebrated as the most beautiful equation in all of mathematics. E to the I pi plus 1 equals 0. But the S-DMT paradigm reveals something absolutely stunning. This equation isn't just a mathematical poem or some abstract curiosity. It's actually the exact chronological instruction manual for executing a scale jump in the fluid universe. It is literally the code for movement.
Let's walk through this exact step-by-step program. This is the sequence a conscious entity, or a vessel, would use to jump across the non-orientable neck of our cosmic Klein-bottle. You start at the starting state, which is 1. Next, E represents the thixotropic relaxation of the fluid. Then, the imaginary unit I represents chiral torsion. That's an orthogonal rotation out of the plane. Pi stands for the double Jitterbug inversion, effectively turning the system inside out, bringing us to the inverted state of -1. And finally, those opposite phases annihilate their stress, bringing the entire system to a perfectly balanced rest, which is envelope 0. It's literally a complete physical blueprint for a topological jump.
And now for the main event, Section 5, the AMENRA warp drive. Let's talk superluminal travel.
Superluminal, or faster-than-light motion, isn't about strapping massive rockets to a physical ship and pushing it through empty space. No, it's about locally manipulating the shear stress of that fluid grid we've been defining by tuning the local geometry until the thixotropic viscosity fluidizes and completely vanishes. The ship performs a systemic topological refresh. It basically instantly re-indexes its coordinates in space.
This framework actually solves the massive problem with the famous Alcubierre warp drive theory. You see, Alcubierre's math worked on paper, but it required impossible negative energy. In S-DMT, the ship itself acts as a mathematical operator, initiating that jitterbug rotation we talked about. The ship creates a Julia expansion, a +1 phase behind it, and a Mandelbrot contraction, a -1 phase ahead of it. By tapping into the natural dual polarity oscillation of the fluid, we entirely remove the need for impossible negative mass. It's brilliant.
Now, you might be wondering, what about Einstein? What about the speed of light being the absolute unbreakable limit of the universe? Well, this clarifies that the speed of light, c, isn't a universal speed limit that we have to aggressively break. C is merely a localized surface tension limit on a 2D membrane. Because the AMENRA drive fluidizes the medium and drops local viscosity to 0, the effective speed diverges to infinity. So we aren't breaking the limit at all. We are just elegantly bypassing the surface tension altogether.
And hey, for anyone worried about time paradoxes, you can breathe easy. The geometry of the plenum naturally protects causality. By utilizing this topological shortcut through the Klein-bottle neck, time paradoxes become geometrically forbidden. Why? Because time doesn't pass during the superluminal jump. The jump itself is the forward tick of time. Returning to the exact same temporal coordinate you left is mathematically and physically impossible. You literally can't go backwards.
Which brings us to this beautifully sealed geometric reality. The AMENRA warp drive is not some magical sci-fi device. It is a naturally emergent theorem of the thixotropic plenum. It requires precisely 0 exotic matter. It relies on 0 free parameters. All it requires is perfect geometric alignment with the universal constants. By commanding the local geometry and continuously paying the energy tax in 1 Hz quanta, the universe practically does the heavy lifting for you.
As the source text perfectly puts it, we do not break the speed of light to travel. We bypass the surface tension to locally update the geometry of reality itself. The universe isn't some empty void keeping us isolated. It's a vast, fluid ocean, and it looks like we might finally have the blueprint to sail it. But if the instruction manual for the cosmos has been hiding in our math all along, it really makes you wonder what else is waiting to be discovered right in front of us.